In today's video, we're going to take our quest system and I'm going to build out this complete quest for this magical flute that involves the dungeon and our dark wizard boss, and bring it all the way to completion with Nero here. And you're going to see all the pain that I go through making this work. So stay tuned. Hi, my name is Michael. Welcome to my 2D action and adventure RPG tutorial series. Follow along and learn how to create your own ARPG in Godot 4 using GD script. Alright, so today's video is going to be, I hope, kind of fun. It's going to be a little bit less structured. I'm going to go through and we're going to take the things that we've built. We've got levels, we've got a boss, NPCs, dialogue system, we've got quest system, and I just want to tie it together and make something a little bit more cohesive. Many of you have probably done this as you've been following along, but especially for those of you who are more beginner entry level with Godot, this will hopefully be educational or informational and kind of illuminate how I might do something, and whatever you learn from that you can take and modify and, you know, do your own thing and hopefully build something even better than what I'm presenting here. So stay tuned if that sounds interesting, or if you think there's something you can learn. Let's go ahead and start with this. Let me go to my file system. I've got this, if I can find it, notes file that I've used occasionally. Looks like the last time we did it was on episode 47. Let's go ahead and just talk about this. I don't even know what episode this is, to be honest. 54, 55. So I'm just going to delete it all. So what I want to do is I want to kind of build this quest that's already been started. So in fact, I know I just came here. Let me find this little quest here. We have a quest that I've called Recover the Lost Flute. And we have Find Magical Flute, Return Magical Flute to Nero. Okay. And, you know, maybe we actually want to add another step on here. I'm going to go ahead and, I guess I can reorder these. Yeah, I can. Okay. So maybe this one would be like find the cave entrance or something like that. Just have an extra step. So I've got this quest and I want it to be able to involve the boss. We've already kind of tied it into the NPC, and I'll show how we've done that in case you've missed that. I'd like to have an item that you need to retrieve, this magical flute. Okay, and there's an asset for that that you can find in the quests.zip file on my itch.io page. And obviously I want to tie the boss into this. I also want to make it so that the cave is maybe not available until you've started the quest. So let's do this. One, you need to be able to initiate the quest with Nero. Two, quest should make the cave available. Or maybe I should call it the dungeon, you know, it's both. Three is I want to connect or integrate the boss into the quest. Four is I want to add a discoverable magical flute item, which will be required to return to Nero, right? So we need to be able to complete the quest by returning the flute to Nero. Okay, so that's kind of what I want to do. And let's look at step one. We kind of already have this, right? So if I look at this scene 2 that I have NPC 2. Let me go ahead and rename this to Nero, so it's easy to find him. And you can see he's got an NPC resource. I've named it Nero. He's got a portrait. And in his dialogue interactions, initially there's a branch, there's a dialogue choice for he asks if you will help him, right? Let's see. So the first thing is, hey, will you help me retrieve my magical flute? And then we've got the choice. And then these, you know, give him the quest. So the first thing is let's just test this and see how it happens. We're going to be doing a lot of testing back and forth. I don't want to test with, let me go ahead and do this. I'm going to go to project settings. I do this from time to time. You can obviously hit F6 to run a scene you're on, but sometimes I'm going to be jumping around scenes and I always want it to start on a specific scene. So I will do that just by clearing out or changing the scene here. There is a danger to this. You could accidentally forget to change it back to your startup screen, and then when you build the game, you start on level 2 instead of on the title screen. So, you know, warning, just be careful when you're changing this startup scene. But I'm going to go to area 1 and scene 2. I'm just going to make that my startup scene. So when I hit F5, it'll run it. And I've got my music playing. I'll probably disable that as well. But when we talk to Nero, so he's going to give us this option, and we can say yes or no. If we say yes, it starts the quest. Okay, so we've done that in the quest videos up to this point. And we can see that the quest is now in our quest log. Okay, but there is a problem. When I talk to Nero again, he's going to ask me the same question. Okay, so let's solve that first. This is pretty straightforward. We have available to us, I'm going to go ahead and just add as a child of the NPC. I'm going to add Shift Control A. Now we have this quest activated switch, I think is what we called it. Yep. Okay, and if you recall what these do, it's indicated by the question mark here, right? Is it allows us to embed things that will be activated upon a quest condition. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this dialog interaction underneath quest activated switch. And then I'm going to do a check for has quest, and I'm going to say remove when activated. And then the quest we want to check for, I'll just quick load and find it, recover lost flute. Okay. So then what this is going to do, right, is as soon as we have the quest, because I've did the remove when activated, it should remove this whole dialog interaction from the tree of the NPC. And before I run, let me just mute my music. I think it's fun to have the music, but it's a lot when I'm recording. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and run this. And let's talk to Nero. Okay, we've gathered the quest. There we go. And now, oh, hold on. Yeah. So I think it's working. Just real quick, there is a setting on these quest activated switches to react to the global signal. Since I didn't check that, what that means is this script won't update until the level loads again. Okay. So let me just leave the scene and come back and test that. And then we'll change that one to react to the global script. Okay. Or to the signal. So yeah, now I can't talk to him. You see, I don't have a prompt because that quest, this scene or this node has been deactivated because I have the quest. And what's nice is if I go back to the game and let's just, for example, let's come up here and let's save this. Oops, I hit load. Do I have that quest? I don't. Okay, bear with me. Let me go back and retest this. Okay, I'm going to come out here, I'm going to come back, and I'm going to save. Okay, so if just to demonstrate this, let me close and run the game again. If I load the game, then I should have that quest. Yeah, recover lost magical flute, and I still can't talk to him, okay? So we can see that there's persistence not only in the game world, but with our save game. So that's working. This is just kind of a good test to make sure our quest system isn't buggy. I hope it's not really buggy because I don't intend to fix too many bugs in this video, though I will fix some minor ones if we find them. Okay, so obviously though, when we have this quest and it's been activated, the next step is we probably want to have some other thing to display. So let's go ahead and just add another activated switch. Okay, so here's a second one. Now you might want to rename these to go along with the step, and I'm going to go ahead and drag this up so that we can see there's multiple multiple switches on this guy. So this one is going to be just simply maybe, let's see, how could we do this? Has quest on current step. So there's a couple ways to do this, right? Because this is built in a kind of a very specific fashion. So we can't string together multiple conditions with one check, but we can actually, I think, if we nest the nodes, we could. So we'll do one that's just like this. Instead of removing when active, we'll have one that, and let's change this before I forget. We wanted this to react to the global signal. So as soon as we accept the quest, the new dialog options will become available. We'll do the same on this one. Okay, so this is has quest. Let's select that same quest, recover the lost flute. Okay, so once he has it, now this node will activate all of its children. Let's start by just adding maybe a dialog interaction. Okay, so Shift Control A, dialog interaction. There we go. And then I guess what do we need underneath this? We need a dialog text. Is that a thing? Oh, that's like a regular node, huh? We created that as a node type, didn't we? Dialog text. So I can do Control A for that. Okay, so we're going to add a dialog text, and this one will say, okay, so what will we have him say here? Let's have him say something like, "Thank you, hero," and then "I lost my flute in the cave to the north." Okay, so theoretically now we should, once we've talked to him and accepted the quest, we should see this new dialog option appear. Let's go ahead and give this a test. And just to test more thoroughly, I'm going to first answer no, that I won't take the quest. So he should ask me again. Okay, now I'll accept it. Okay, and then let's talk to him one more time. "Thank you, hero. I lost my flute in the cave to the north." Perfect. Okay, so we can see that by adding this and setting this up appropriately, we've now made it so that the NPC toggles the dialogue options he has available. You do have to be careful because, you know, if you're building it this way, you got to make sure that these dialogue options with the NPC are kind of mutually exclusive, I think is the term I want to use. We want to make sure that we don't have conflicting or kind of like overlapping conditions where he could potentially have two different dialogue interactions available, because that would mess it up. Okay, so try and nest them, maybe sequentially. And you have to be very careful in your planning and testing when building something like this. Okay, now I want to go ahead, we'll come back to this NPC because we're going to have to add more dialogue options, like when you complete the quest and things like that. But what I want to do right now is I want to look at one of our other scenes. Let me just open this in the file system. So scene 1, this is the scene where we've got a couple goblins and we've got this cave. Okay, and I'm actually going to add another grass tile. Okay, not as a child of that one necessarily, but just right here. And I'm going to give this a name, and I'm going to call it, I don't know, blocked cave, maybe. And all I'm going to do in here is just come in and grab some of these tiles. And let's see, here we go. Got to get that tool selected. Okay, so I'm painting this on here. So we have a piece of cave. If I run this scene, we won't see the cave. We won't. Oh no. What we need to do actually is, what we have two conflicting tile maps going on here. So let me just, there's an option that I'm looking for here to make local. That's going to remove this, break the link to the scene that it inherits. And now I can also come in here and go to this script and say clear. So it doesn't have that tile script on there, but that's handy because I do have the tile set now. Okay, so let me just run this scene. I'll hit F6. So the cave should be blocked. Okay, and so I can't enter the cave. So what we want to do then is, again, let's add a quest activated switch. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and drag this up here. I'm going to position this in relation to where it works. And then I'm going to drag the cave as a child of it. Okay, and now this switch will just say when you have the quest, lost flute. Okay, then I can remove it. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to go check this before I talk to the NPC. Let's make sure. Okay, cave is blocked. Now if I talk to Nero and accept the quest, now when I come up here, there we go. The cave is now available. Okay, except it's blocked. So we've got a minor issue there, don't we? Because I guess this is still enabled. So I want to look at how this script works. This quest activated switch. This is not something I foresaw, but this is good. This is the kind of thing that happens as I'm working and prepping these videos. Okay, when we're ready, we check if it's activated, right? And clearly we had, let's go set as activated. So clearly we hit a condition where it wasn't activated. And so what did we do? We hid the children, and hide children sets the visibility and it sets the process mode. Now there's a couple ways we could handle this. We could queue free things that we're removing. Or we could add a condition in here to check, you know, if it's a tile map and disable it. I think what I would like to do is just extend our quest activated switch, and I'm going to provide a new variable. So we have remove when activated, which is what we checked. Let's add another export variable, and let's call this one free when removed. I don't know, but or free on remove maybe. If you think of a better way to name this, by all means, share it in the comments. So I'm going to set it to false by default. Okay. Now when I save this, if I come back to this, there's this new free on remove. I'm going to check that. I'm going to turn it on. And then let's handle this. So let's go back to that show or hide children. And what we're going to do is say if, what is it, free on remove, then we'll just queue free it. We'll say c.queueFree. I think that should work. And I've checked it for this cave entrance. So let's go ahead and run the game again. And this time I'm going to talk to him and I'm going to save it so that we're kind of... So we don't have to talk to him again next time. So let's come in here and just save that. Okay. Now, there we go. The cave is showing. And I can now walk through the door. Okay, perfect. Okay, quick solution. You know, we could really work to make that a more flexible and robust solution to being able to remove and hide things. I think this is simple. I think it works good. And you're going to find, you know, I had a thought recently about over-engineering things. And I think, you know, I'm kind of in the middle. I don't tend to want to over-engineer too much, but sometimes I sit in a piece of code and I'm like, how can I make this even more perfect and work in every possible scenario? And oftentimes the work to make something that robust just isn't worth it if you're working on a project like this, especially if it removes the fun. Okay, so there we go. We've got a couple things completed. And if I look at the notes, okay, we can initiate the quest with Nero, and it makes the dungeon available. So let's go into the dungeon and let's work on the next bits, right? Where we want to connect and integrate the boss and then add a discoverable magic flute. Let's dig into this. I'm going to look at the cave real quick. If I go to my file system and open the dungeon folder, let me just open all these scenes. I think we have a decent flow in here, but let me go back to the file system. There is kind of maybe a bug or two. I don't know if it's a bug, defect. In fact, the first thing I'm thinking of is this statue, okay? Because let's go ahead and demo this. This is an issue that I've had questions about in the past, and I just haven't addressed them because, to be frank, it's hard to have the bandwidth sometimes to do it all. So if I push the statue on the switch, that works great. And then if I come in here and go back into the room, well, now the statue's back. At least it didn't lock me behind the bars or anything funky. And if it had been game breaking, I would have addressed it sooner. But even if I push this on here and then leave the dungeon, of course I ran the dungeon without having the quest, so I can't get back in. Let's just load our game and try that again. So you guys see the problem here, though, right? We don't retain the position or the state of this statue, and to some degree that's by design. In fact, I'm going to go with the simple route. We could always save the position of the statue, maybe per game session, maybe even save it in the save game, right? And I'm not going to do the full robust implementation, but I want to put a warning in here. For a simple game like this, if we save the location of this always, and let's say you push this into a corner, now it's going to be stuck in the corner. You can't get it out, right? No matter what you do. And so in this scenario, it's nice if the statue position were to reset, because you could come back and just push and try again, right? I mean, if I leave and come back, okay, I can try again. But then once it's on the switch, we would want it to stay. And so what I'm getting at is, rather than try and save the location of the statue always at all times, and then have to, well, look at that, it's caught on something, and then have to deal with the issue of it getting caught. Like, this is another scenario. The statue is useless to me now because I can't push it down. right? Rather than try and figure out how to do that, I mean, we could make a push and a pull state. And I'm not saying you shouldn't, but right now, rather than do that, I'm just going to implement a quick solution where if the button is pressed, then we'll save that the statue is on the button. And then if anytime this button is not pressed, I should say anytime the statue presses the button. Anytime that's not pressed, then we'll just leave it be and the statue can reset, okay? So we're going to do this on the fly. All right, so seeing as how the problem here is related to the switch and the statue, I think the switch is fine. I don't necessarily want to change the script or the code on the switch. But maybe what we could do is a quick and dirty implementation of making this statue remember its location, but only if certain conditions are met, right? So what would those be? And I think what we'll do is we can add like an option to the statue. We'll make it optional to save, and we'll only make it save if it's within a specific location, in this case, the button. I think that makes sense. If that makes sense to you guys, that's what we're going to do. We're doing this on the fly, so wish me luck. Let's go in and let's look at this Pushable Statue script and scene. I'm going to go ahead and open that scene as well. So in the scene, we've got, it's pretty simple. It is a rigid body 2D. It has a push speed, and that's about it, right? Looking at the script, that's our only export variable. We have a push direction, which happens when we're pushing it. And we've only got these two simple functions. We've got a physics process, which is setting the velocity. And then we have this function to set the push, which if I recall, we're calling that from the player. I don't know. Let me just check. Oh, no. Oh, no, that's just the setter on the push direction. Okay. Okay, so let's look at this. First of all, let's give it two new export variables. Okay. Now, the first variable will be, I think we'll make it optional for this to be persistent. And by default, we can call it false. That way we don't have to change how any statues you may have built will function. And then we can export another variable. I mean, alternatively, you could make it true, right? The persistent value. The other variable will be, now I don't know if this is how all of you are going to want to handle this, but I'm going to give this a target location maybe. And I'm going to go ahead and set this to vector20 when we start. So if I save this and I look at my dungeon scene, oh, not this one, this one. We've got our pushable statue. I can tell him it's persistent, and maybe tagret location. Let's go ahead and change the name. Not only is tagret spelled wrong, but I think I want to call this the persistent, I don't know, persistent location, maybe. Because what I want to do is I only want to save it if it's on the switch or whatever the target location for this puzzle is. So, okay, so if the user has completed the puzzle, then we shouldn't move the statue. Otherwise, it will reset back to where it is currently. Okay? And I think that's a pretty good way to do it. Because that way we can still maintain the ability to leave the room and come back and have it reset if we've gotten it into a bad spot like in a corner. Okay? And if not, if you want to do something different, then hopefully this will give you a good idea of how to at least get started on your journey to doing your own implementation. So going back to this pushable statue script, we're going to have the ability to set a location, and we're going to need an onReady function because we're going to have to say, in the case where this one was saved and it's in the correct location, where do we put it? Okay, or it needs to set the location if saved. Okay, that's a nice concise way of saying what I was trying to say there. And then we also need kind of like a way to check and to save that. Okay, and here's what we're going to do. I think now we're going to provide a location on this where it should be. And so let's give an example of what this would look like. So this statue, if it was over here right on the button, okay, then that's the location where we want to save it. And even if it was just a little bit close, we'll save it. Okay. And what we'll do is you can see there's a little bit of size to this. So even if it gets, within a certain fraction of that location, we can save it. And let's start by just figuring out what that location is. So this pushable statue right now, the location is this transform position 192, 112. I'm going to make it a nice, I don't know, that's probably the most even number, 191, 114. Okay, so that's the location. In other words, if I do push it on the button and then I leave the room and come back, this is the location I'd like to just set the statue at, okay? Let's go ahead and drag it back. Now we need to be able to fudge it a little bit again because the size of this collision is a little bit bigger. So we don't want to save this only if the statue hits that precise location. Okay, instead what we want to do is save it if it gets within a proximity that we determine is close enough. And in this case, it'll be anywhere where it would have pushed the button. So, it can push the button from about there. And so what I'm going to do is, we know that this pushable statue, if we look at the scene, the collision shape has a very specific size. It's 30 by 12, okay? 30 on the x-axis, 12 on the y. So that's 6 up and down, 15 left or right pixels, right? That's kind of the margin of error. Looking at this button, this pressure plate, it also has a collision shape. I'm wondering how much we should account for that. Because if we're not careful, then you could push the statue just right here, like 1 pixel, and that's going to push the button down, even though it only overlaps by 1 pixel. But maybe we didn't determine that this was close enough, because if we look at the origin of where we're wanting to save the statue, it's right here, right? Which is, it's greater than the distance that it could be to be able to actually push the button. Okay, so I hope I explained that little concern I've got there. Let me look at this pressure plate. Now, because we're pretty much explicitly using the statue with the pressure plate right now, I'm going to go ahead and set this. Or actually, let's look at this real quick. 8 pixels by 8 pixels. So that means that there's like a 4 pixel margin or extra distance that it could be in either direction. We can work with that. So let's go back to our pushable statue. We've got our persistent location. It's persistent. If we have a persistent location, that means that there's a target where we want it to go. So I'm going to export another variable. This is how we'll handle this. And we can call this, we can call it the target location size. That's a good name for it. I like how I'm coming up with decent names. If I could type them too. And by default, I'm actually going to set this to the size of that button. So it's a vector 2, and it's going to be, what was that, 4 and 4, right? Because if we go back and look at our pressure plate, this shape is 8 pixels tall and wide, which means that there's 4 pixels on either side. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can kind of see right there, right? Okay. So that's how we're going to do this target location size is going to help indicate that, yeah, not only do we want to get to this location and we're going to take into consideration the size of our collider, but we're also going to take into consideration the size of the target location, which is also the size of that collider, right? Would be another way to interpret that. I'm going to go ahead and save this. Okay. So then here's what we'll do. We need to do a few things. So we need to be able to detect if we're at the target location, and then we need to be able to save it if we are, and then lastly, we need to be able to set the location when this loads if it has been saved. Okay, this is getting kind of long explanation here. So let's talk about detecting. Let's do a check in here. So in our physics process, we'll do an if statement because we only want to check if it's persistent. Okay, so if persistent. So if it's persistent, we're going to do some calculations. And, you know, thinking about this, let's see. We could just check the distance of the vectors. That's not super accurate though, because if it's up or down, it needs to be closer than if it's on the side, right? Because it's wider than it is tall. And so what I want to do is I want to check the X and the Y coordinates, and they both need to be within the area. I think that makes sense, right? So if we go back to our pushable statue script, let's get, we'll do 2 checks. We'll just say, what am I saying here? Let me make a comment. If the X coordinate is on target or close enough, right? Then we'll do one thing. And so let's define this as a Boolean. So we'll just say X is on. And then this will equal, this has to equal something. And basically what we have to do is say, is the location of our statue within the area, this target location, right? So here's what we'll do. We'll say position dot X. So if the X position minus the target, let's see, the persistent location, that's a distance, right? Except that this is could be a negative value, so we want to get the absolute value of that, ABS. Okay, so if the absolute value of the X here minus the persistent location X, sorry, I should have put X on that. And then here we need to say is like less than something. And if we look at our statue again, just remind ourselves that distance is 15 pixels. So if it's less than 15, but we also need to adjust this and account for this target location size. So it could be a little bit bigger, right? 15 plus 4. So we'll say 15 plus target location size dot X. Okay, so X is going to be true if this is within the X coordinates. Let's go ahead and print this so that we can see. In fact, we'll only print it if we're on. So we'll say if X is on, then we will print, and we'll just print X is on. Okay, let's go ahead and try this dungeon scene. I think this will work for detecting the X. So we should see some spamming once we get this pushed over, some spamming in the console. Yeah, X is on. That's good. As soon as it pushed, it started, right? And now it's off, and you can't tell that because it looks like it might still be spamming, but there we go. So if I just try this again. Huh. There was a little bug there. Boink, X is on. Okay, as soon as it pushed it, it started spamming to the console. So that's good. That's a good detection. And then if I go till it's off, and if I clear this, it should no longer be spamming the console, which means it's not on. And we'll just push it from the other direction just to check. Okay. Okay, that little bit of code works. We also need to check the Y. So we'll say variable Y is on equals absolute value. And this time it's going to look similar, right? Except that it's going to be the Y coordinates of these. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. Dot Y, dot Y, dot Y. This value 15 is incorrect though, because the pushable statue, if we look at the collision shape, it's only 12 pixels tall, so that's only 6 here. Now if we were to do this same kind of test for the Y coordinate, then it's going to start spamming right away, because if we look at it, the statue is already within their range for the Y. Okay. Yeah, Y is on. Okay. But now we can know if both of these are true, then we know that our location is within the area where it should save. Okay. So in fact, what we can do is we can take this. If X is on and Y is on, then we can print on the button, and then we can say else print off the button. Or I say button, but it's target. You know what we're doing here, right? So let's go ahead and do that, and let's run this. Okay, off the button, on the button. You can see down there at the bottom. I hope you see that. Now if I push this guy up and off, there we go. It's off the button, on the button. Okay, cool. And obviously on target is more accurate because it might not always be a button, but there we go. Here's what we're going to do. Here we want to save that we're on the button, and here we want to maybe unsave it. So if both of these are on, and let's go ahead and let's actually just keep a little variable here. Variable, we'll call it on target. By default, that will be false. Okay. So here we will say if X is on and Y is on and on target equals false. The reason I'm going to do this is so that we're only running this condition when we've entered and we already weren't on. So here we'll just set on target equals true. Okay. Else we'll say on target equals false. And actually, let's make this more specific. I'm going to copy this check up here. So if on target is true, and then we're going to do a different check. And actually, this one doesn't have to be very quite so specific. It needs to be a little bit more generic. Okay, so if on target equals true, and X, you know, we can either say X is on equals false, or we could say not X is on. I kind of prefer doing it with the, and then we're going to change this and do an or, but I kind of prefer doing the equals than the not. So, okay, where am I getting my, oh, else needs to be an elif. Okay, okay, so condition 1, but if one of these is false, or both, it doesn't matter. If either of them are false and on target is true, then we're going to set on target to false. And here's what we'll do. We'll also print a message just so we can say this. Arrived on target, left target. And let's run this scene and let's give it a test. So what we should see now is when we push the statue on the button, it should say arrived on target. There we go, arrived on target. I'm going to just make this smaller so that we don't have to do that. Okay, and then likewise, if I push it off, it should left target. Yeah, there we go. Arrived on target, left target. Obviously, the door didn't close when this left the target because I was standing on the door, but you can see that it's working. Arrived on target, left target. Okay, perfect. So now that we've got these working, instead of just printing this, what we can do is we can save the location or the persistent data, I guess. And then down here, we can unsave or remove persistent data. So we could write code to do this directly, but let's go ahead and utilize our existing persistent save data node that we've created. So if I come in here, I'm going to do Shift Control A and find this persistent data handler, because this is a nice node that we can use. If we recall, this will save data for us. Okay. Let's go ahead and just put this in here. And then in our Pushable Statue script, let's get a reference to that. Okay. Persistent data handler. And what we can do is to save it, we can say, when we arrive on it, we can say persistent data handler dot set value. And then I think the set value is good to go, right? It's just going to save this. And I'm going to rename this data handler to on target, because that name is going to be kind of part of what's saved. And so what I would like to do right now to test is, let's go ahead and run the game. And I'm just going to kind of start from scratch. Okay, let's get this mission, the quest. And then let's go up here. The door should be open to the dungeon. Okay, I'm going to save my game. I left that statue in a funny spot, but we'll fix that. I'm going to go ahead and save it. Now if I... Uh-oh, something in the debugger. We got a little bug here. Let's fix this real quick. Huh. Node not found. Persistent data handler. Well, that's interesting. I wonder why not. Oh, it's because I changed the name. On target. Save that. I wonder if I can just stay here and redo it. I don't think I will, but let's give it a go. So that probably didn't work. I'm gonna go ahead and save my game right here. Let's close this, run it again. Okay, so if I load my game, I'll be in this room. Now let's look at our save data. So I'm going to come over here to project, and I'm going to say open user data folder. And then within here, you should see our save data that we've been looking at. And I'm going to open this in Notepad++. So if you have Notepad++, go ahead and grab that, or you could just use text editor. Notepad is just a little, Notepad++ is just a little bit nicer. Okay, so if we look at our script here, not our script, but our save data, we've got this persistence, right? That's part of our save data, and it's empty. Let's go ahead and refresh ourselves a little bit on this while we're looking at this. If I look at the persistent data handler and I click on the save manager, we have this current save, and here's the structure of the save, right? And this persistence array is the same as this persistence array that's being saved. And we can see that it's empty, but as soon as we save something into this, it should update this array, right? And so when we look at our persistent data handler, it uses add persistent value, which is going to append an item to the persistence if it's not already there. Okay. So theoretically, if we do this and our code is working, it should set that data. And unfortunately, we're not going to be able to see it until we save it. So let's go ahead and go up to System and let's say Save. Now, if I go back to the save file, it needs to be it's been modified, so it needs to reload. I'll say yes. Okay, persistence. Here we go. We've got level dungeon 01.01.tscn pushable statue on target. Okay, cool. So that means we saved it. Now, if I close the game and rerun and then load, it's not going to do anything, right? That's the next step. Okay, the statue, we need to get the statue to move in this scenario. So let's go back to our dungeon real quick. I'm going to take this statue, I'm going to drag him back over here where I want him to start. Okay. So looking at our pushable statue script, what we need to do is when it's ready, we need to check our persistent data handler. We need to say if, I think this should be good enough. If persistent data handler.value equals true, that means we know it's been saved, right? That this statue is in its target location. So if that's the case, then we will say position equals, and then we'll just say persistent location. Let's go ahead and run our game. If this worked, it should just put the statue there when we load. Awesome, it worked. Okay, now it's flawed because if I push it off and leave and come back, it's going to be on there again, right? But the good thing is if I leave it on and I go through the dungeon and I come back, it's on the spot. So that's good. We just need to be able to handle removing the persistent data when we push it off. And if we look at our persistent data handler, we actually don't have a way to do that. We have set and get value. Okay, let's make a new function called RemoveValue. And we obviously don't have a way to do this because if we look at our save manager and we have add persistent value, there's no way to remove in here either. So let's create a function in our global save manager as well that can help handle this remove persistent value. Now, just like the add persistent value, we want to pass in the string that we need to remove. So actually, when we want to remove a value from an array, it's really simple. Let's get a reference to our array, just like we've done in the check persistent value. And let's look at the array documentation. I like to come into the documentation a lot because my knowledge about the methods and the capabilities of these classes is pretty limited sometimes. So if we look through here, we can find a method that might help us, right? We've used append to add items to an array. There's back, different ways to search. Clear will clear the entire array. There's an erase function here, and you'll notice it erases a value, which is variant. Variant refers to, an individual item in the array. So let's look at this erase. It finds and removes the first occurrence of value from the array. If value does not exist in the array, nothing happens. To remove an element by index, use RemoveAt instead. Now we don't have an index, right? An index being where it is in the array, but we do have a variant. It's the string. So this erase function or method will work. So let's just take this array, we called it P, and let's just say erase, and then we'll say value. Okay, now what this is going to do is it's simply going to say if that value, if that variant exists, erase it. Because remember, it says if the value does not exist, nothing happens. So we're not going to get an error. That's fine. It's not going to do anything bad if this doesn't work. Okay, so let's go back to our persistent data handler, and in our remove value, we'll call save manager dot remove. I need to save those before I'm going to get remove persistent value. And then just like we've done in these other functions, we'll use the get name function here to get that string. Okay. So I want to do something real quick, and I want to put a breakpoint on the remove and on the set. We haven't used these a lot in what I've been teaching. And maybe we should have used them earlier. To add a breakpoint, you just simply find a line in your code on the left column, and if you hover to the left of the numbers, you'll see the little red circle appear, and you simply click to add a breakpoint on that line. So I'm going to add one on the save, when we set the value on the save manager function call, and when we remove, I'm going to put it right there. What that's going to do is when we run our game, anytime this line of code gets called, it's going to pause the game, and it's going to bring us here into Godot with the debugger, and we're going to be able to see the stack trace, or the, what functions have been called and what the data looks like. So let's run our game, and I'm going to load the scene, and you can see that it instantly hit, and you see the little yellow arrow, it hit the set value function. And what's nice is that we can come and we can look in here. You can see the values on this script. We can also see our globals down here. So if we come down and find our save manager and we click on this object, it's going to show us that all the data in that global here in the inspector. And the current save dictionary is right here. And we can see in our persistence, there is one item in the array, right? It's our on target saved value that we've got. Because we just loaded the game, so it makes sense that that would happen. Okay. Let's go ahead. You can hit this little play button here, or F12 to continue, or it's not a play button, it's a continue button. Take us back to the game. Now, if I push the statue off, I think we'll see that fire again. Oh, well, I guess not. Did I not hook something up? Whoa, it's stuck with a sound effect. Okay. Yeah, because when we're setting the value, it hit, I guess. Okay. I have remove value. I think I've just never hooked up remove value. So let's go ahead and stop the game. And let's go to Pushable Statue. We need to call it, right? So here we were calling set value. Let's put remove value. Remove value. Okay, so we put the remove value on this other condition where we pushed off of the target. So now, I guess if we run the game now, we should see both fire. And I'm going to load the game. It's going to stop. I'm just going to hit play. Now, once we push this off, it's annoying because it stopped, but we can see it hit this breakpoint. I'm going to go ahead and remove that now because I don't want to hit these anymore. But we can come down in here to our save manager. And if we look at our current save, we can see that the persistence, well, it should remove that. It doesn't look like it's removed yet, but let's go ahead and get back to the game. And in fact, my arrow keys are stuck. Okay. There we go. It's removed now. You can see that the size of the array is 0 because we hit the breakpoint when we called the function, remove function. It hadn't removed it until it ran a couple more lines of code, right? So now that this whole function ran, and it ran the remove persistent value function, it removed it from the array. So then if I come back to my game, that's handy because now I pushed it into a corner, right? Let's say. And I'm like, crap, I can't get it on the button. Let me just leave the level, come back. Ah, there we go. It's all good. Okay, and it saved that too. So if I push this guy up here, and I've saved it in this room, let's go ahead and save it right now. Like, oh crap, I saved it in a bad spot. Let's see what happens. There we go. Because he wasn't on target, he put it to his original location. I'll put him on target. I'm going to save my game. I'm going to leave the room, come back. Okay, he's on. Leave the room. Load game. Voila. There we go. Okay, we've addressed this kind of pesky issue with the statue. There's lots of other ways that this could be done. I'm curious if anybody has any thoughts on that. Add some comments in the comments on this video. Help a brother out. Maybe see if anybody else, you know, some people might want a different result than what I've developed here, but, you know, there's lots of ways to do any single task. It just depends on the parameters and the requirements that you have. Okay, so our dungeon is progressing. That was kind of a bit of a tangent. But we'll go ahead and continue and work through it. Okay, let's go back to our notes. We kind of did like a extra credit here, right? we fixed the statue. Let's go to the boss and let's connect him up. So I'm going to close some of these scenes and some of these scripts here. And let's see, the boss is, I don't even know, he's right here. We've got this boss scene. The boss needs to be a little bit more dynamic. And we also need to integrate this magical flute item into the boss. So maybe like once we defeat the boss, then the flute item becomes available. Either he gives it to the player or he drops it. I think dropping it makes sense. And then we have to return the flute. So let's do this. Connect and integrate the boss into the quest. We already can't get into the dungeon until we have the quest, so we don't need to worry whether or not we have the quest, I don't think. But let's look at this. Let's look at this scene. It's kind of complicated, but if we look at the Dark Wizard boss, he has a persistent data handler on him. He's got a lot of script, a lot of scripting. Okay, but he has, let's go to the ready function. When we load the boss, we get the value of his persistent data handler. And if it's true, then we disable the door block and we queue free the boss. Okay. When do we set the persistent data handler? Let's just do a search in here and let's remind ourselves where and how we're doing all of this. Defeat. Here we go. Persistent data handler dot set value when we defeat the boss. Now I'd like to change this because I'd like it to be, instead I'd like to drop the item here. Let's call the magical flute, which doesn't exist yet. Okay. And then once we pick up the flute, we'll set that. The reason I want to do it that way is I don't want the player to be able to not pick up the flute and leave the room and then the flute's just gone. It won't drop because the boss is gone and it only drops when you beat the boss, right? So we'll drop the magical flute, and then upon picking up the magical flute, the player can then leave the room. It'll then open the door, okay? So let's see. That means that this door block enabled probably needs to move as well. I'm going to go ahead and put this down here. And that needs to be removed. Okay. So we're not going to set the value or any of this until we pick up the flute. So let's go ahead and work on that. Now we need to create our flute item real quick. I'm going to come in here and find my, wherever that stuff is. I've got items somewhere in here, don't I? Items. There we go. If I could remember alphabetical order. And let's create a new item in this folder. Let's just make a new resource. And it's item data. We'll call it magical flute. And if we open this up, we'll give it a name of Nero's magical flute. And then the description will say something about it. Okay. Now it needs a texture. We're not going to give it any item use effects. It's not going to be usable. So let's go ahead and get the texture that we need for this. So in this sprites folder, I'm going to just drag it in here. So I'm going to open this in File Manager. So just find that download that quest.zip file if you've already downloaded that in the past, or grab it if you need it and unpack that, and then open that folder as well. Okay, here's the Flute PNG. I'm just going to go ahead and copy that into my project. Now I can drop this onto the texture. Cool. So let's go ahead to our Dark Wizard boss. Now we have an item dropper, don't we? Yeah, item dropper. So I'm going to instantiate a child scene of that item dropper. And how does this item dropper work? It needs an item data. So let's load one of those and let's get the magical flute in there. Okay, how does the item dropper work? Let's refresh ourselves. It has dropped, blah, 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 blah. Okay, drop item. Okay, so we can just call this drop item function. So let's go to our Dark Wizard boss, and to drop the magical flute, I'm just going to get this item dropper and call drop item. Right? So for the sake of testing, let's select our Dark Wizard boss. I'm going to give him a hit points of 1, and I'm going to run this scene by pressing F6, and let's kill the wizard. And after the animation, it played the sound, but I don't see the item. I think it's because of the location. Let's check this out. Where is our item dropper? It's clear up here. We built this so that it even displays, right? This. I think what I'd like to do, let's make it a child of the boss node so that the flute drops where the boss is. And I'm going to set the transform of it to 0, 0. Okay, item drop. Boom. Nice. Let's save that. I'm going to have to go back to my boss script, and this reference is going to be broken because we moved it. So let's just drag this item dropper in there again. Okay, let's run this one more time. So this time he should drop the flute. Oh goodness. Why Hino? Is it invisible? Gosh, you guys, so many little things to think about. Yeah, because we're animating the boss node. Okay, bad move. Don't put it as a child of the boss. Let's just put it back in the boss node. Okay, item dropper. It's in the middle. I'm going to just go ahead and put this next to him. Let's do this. See, this is just kind of the nature of making games. This is kind of fun. This is fun to me to actually work through these. If I go back to the script, I'm going to change this again. Oh no, I still have it under boss node. Hold on. Dark Wizard boss. I want it under the Dark Wizard boss because I don't want it under the boss node. Okay, we'll drop the item, but what we can do is maybe we can update the location of the item dropper before we drop the item. We'll just say .position equals, and then we'll get our boss node position, which I think we have the boss node, right? Yeah, boss node .position. Okay, this should work. Let's go ahead and run this one more time. So he should drop the flute where the boss is. Nice. Okay, picked up the flute. Hey, there we go. This is the magical flute that Nero lost in the dungeon. Now the problem is it didn't open the door. Let's go full circle. Let's finish that. So instead of this stuff happening here, what we want to do is let's just make a new function that we'll call open dungeon or something like that. Or it could be called like complete boss fight. I don't know. And then let's grab these bits of code that we commented out. We want to set our persistent value for the boss that he's been defeated. And we want to open our door. Okay. There we go. So this open dungeon function, what we'll do is if we look at our, let's look at our item dropper. I think we had a function in here. Pick up item data, sprite. We just need a way to be able to detect when this item has been picked up. And unfortunately, we don't have something super handy because when we look at the Dark Wizard boss and we're dropping the item, it doesn't actually give us the item. If we look at an item though, I just want to, let's go through the code a little bit. Bloop, 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 bloop. It's going to create a new scene in here, right? Instantiate an item pickup. Item pickup has a signal. Okay, so we just need to be able to connect to that. Let's do this. Let's say once we've dropped the item, let's just make a way to get it. We have an on-drop pickup, right? We could use that, actually, because that saves it. Let's do that. Let's make a signal from this item dropper. And we'll just call it drop collected. That way we can connect to this, right? So what we need to do is emit that signal on drop pickup. We'll say drop collected.emit. Okay, cool. So then when we come to our Dark Wizard boss, what we can do is we can connect to this signal here. You know, we're doing the lazy way, but that's okay, because we only had to do this once for the whole boss battle, not like on every frame or anything, so it's fine to just do it once. And because we're referencing it directly, we're not going to get autocomplete clues or anything like that. So let's look at the item dropper. Drop collected. That's the signal. Okay, so drop collected.connect. So as soon as we drop this item, we want to start listening to this, and we'll just connect this open dungeon function. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and paste that in there. So then once we pick it up, that should happen. If everything works, we should be able to kill the boss. Okay, now we can collect the whistle. And boom, the dungeon is opened. Okay, nice. Obviously, we're doing this out of order, so that door was never open to begin with. So let's test this properly. One thing we didn't do there, though, you notice we didn't advance the quest. So, but let's just test the game. I want to get to the point where we can, I just want to test each thing in isolation so that we know that it's working. So I'm going to come in here and get the key to the boss by killing these guys. Okay, so we'll get the key. Okay, nice. We've got the key. You know, we never checked off the find the cave entrance, find the magical flute. We'll do that. We gotta do those things. Okay, let's see. I'm gonna save the game here. And if I go in and open this door now, I should be able to fight the boss. Get the flute. See, right here we need to update our quest there as well, right? But at least we can come out. Bump, 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 bump. And then we could go give the flute to Nero. But none of this is working because we haven't done everything right. Okay. So let's just connect a few more things up. But so far, I mean, things are coming together, right? We've got our item drop. Goes to our boss when he drops it. And until you pick it up, you can't leave the dungeon. Okay. Let's hook a couple of these things up. So let's first go to our dungeon 01 scene where we come in. Yeah, okay. And what do we have here that we could use to connect for, you know, the first step of that quest was that we found the dungeon entrance. So let me look at the level transition. I think it would be nice to have a signal on these entrances so we know if they entered from here. Okay. So then what we can do on this level transition, see, I'm just adding stuff all over. I think I warned you that we might be doing that. So when we player entered, load new level, place player, this is what it is. So if this is not the target transition, it does nothing. Otherwise, it puts the player here. So then all we would have to do is just emit that new signal. What was it? Entered from here, dot emit. Okay, cool. Now, in our scene, what we can do is we can let's add one of those quest trigger things. So what do we have? Quest advanced trigger. Okay, so we've got our level transition. We've got our quest advanced trigger. Let's assign the quest that goes in here. It's the recover lost flute. The step is find cave entrance, step 1. And then the signal we want to connect to is this entered from here, right? Remember, we made this. We could go to the level transition node, entered from here, connect that, and go through that rigmarole. And if you want to do that, that's perfectly fine. I'm going to use this little functionality that we built where I can just provide the signal name. Okay, so let's actually start from scratch and see if this signal works. Sorry, I'm hovering over something there. Okay, so now when we enter the cave, we should get a quest updated message. Nice. Find the cave entrance. And that's only going to, oh, it's going to fire every time. So let's just do this. Let's add a quest activated switch. I'm going to make the advanced trigger a child of the switch. And then the switch, I'm going to say on current step, let's load our recover lost flute. Okay, so if we're on the find cave entrance step, then this will be there. Otherwise it won't. I think this will work, except that this is no longer going to be able to connect. So I'm going to actually have to clear this signal name. I'm going to have to go the old-fashioned way. I'm going to go to the level transition, entered from here, connect, and then let's pick our quest advanced trigger, pick a function, and we'll say advanced quest. Okay. Connect. So now that one's connected. And just make sure we've got the advanced quest. That's the right function, right? Because that's what we want to do. But now they should only fire once. Let's run the game again and see if that works. Okay, quest. We need to find the cave entrance. We should kill a goblin. There we go. Okay, quest. We have found the cave entrance. So we're no longer on that step. Ah, dang it. It's still fired off. Oh, I probably have to change this quest activated switch, right? It needs to be remove when activated. And we'll do this free on remove. So it's not gonna go. Okay, let's run that again. It's important to test these things and understand how they work, I guess. Okay. One more time. Kill a goblin. Check our quest. Okay, quest step 1 of 3 complete. That pains me so. Okay. On current quest step, the step that we're checking is quest step 1. You know, I realize it's because I'm doing the wrong kind of check here. I should check if the quest step is complete and then remove it. And I'm going to check both of those again when step 1 is complete. So the problem is, you know, when we're nesting these two quest things, it seems like this quest advanced trigger is it's playing first, or it's running its script first. So here's what we're going to do. Because the quest activated script should always take precedence, I think when we can just go into this code here. And in the advanced quest, let's just do an await. And then we're going to say get tree. And we'll say process frame. Okay. So this will make this advanced quest wait a frame. That should give the quest activated a chance to remove it, I think. Let's go ahead and test this one more time. Okay, so we've got the quest. Find cave entrance has not yet been completed. Okay, there we go. So we entered the cave, said we found it. Now the find cave entrance has been completed. So if I leave and come back, there we go. Nothing happened. So I'm going to go ahead and let's get this. Now that we've got the quest working properly up to this point, I'm going to come in here and get the key and then save the game again. So that we'll be at that point. We can test from that point on. Ouchie. Okay. Got the key. Now we're ready to go fight the boss. Let's save our game. Let's go ahead and just test this. Let's run it and load the game. And let's make sure that this doesn't fire again. Just be extra careful. Okay, cool. Everything's working good. Everything's working good. So next is what? We got to fight the boss. And then the boss needs a quest advance trigger as well. So let's come into our boss scene again. And under the Dark Wizard boss, I'm going to add an advance trigger. And this one is going to obviously advance the Lost Flute quest to find the magical flute, right? So the trigger for this one, let's look at our Dark Wizard boss signals again. What signals do we have? We need a... You know what we should do? We should make this a child of the item dropper, because the item dropper, we just did this. It has this drop collected signal. Okay, so then once the drop is collected, we can do that. That'll advance our quest. Let's go ahead and run our game and let's test the boss one more time and see if we can advance it. So load the game. And let's open this door and go fight the boss, who should still have 1 hit point. So I'll just boomerang him to death. Okay. Door's closed. Quest updated. Recover lost magical flute. Find the magical flute. Okay. So now if we look at our quests as well, there's a little bug there. The inventory is not focusing. I need to figure that out. Find the magical flute is now completed. I'm going to go ahead and save the game. And I'm curious, if we load the game, the door should be open, entering it, no boss. Okay, cool. That's all working good. I'm gonna try leaving. Okay, good. No beep there. Now, I'm going to go ahead and just save the game right before we talk to Nero, because this is where we got to complete the quest, and then we've come full circle with it. So let me go ahead and save the game here. Because right now, obviously, if I talk to him, he doesn't know that we have the flute. Okay? So let's come in here. Let's go back to that level, I guess. Now we have a quest activated switch for his different dialogue branches. One is just if he has the quest, but we need to kind of nest this and make it a little bit different. So let's add another activated switch. This one will be if we're going to have two that are going to be different, right? So if we're on the current quest step, and oops, I need to select a quest. Let's quick load the quest. Lost my flute. Now the step that we're on is return the flute to Nero, right? Because otherwise it doesn't matter. So if we're on the step where we return the flute to Nero, then I'm going to duplicate this dialogue interaction. I'm going to put one under here, and he's going to say something like, wow, you found my flute. And then he'll say something about the reward, right? Like, it's not much, but here's a reward. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and save that. Now, if you recall, I guess not our dialogue text, but our dialogue interaction node, it has some signals, player interacted and finished. So we can add an advance trigger underneath this dialogue interaction. And what this can do is it can, let's go ahead and connect to that finished signal. So on the quest advance node, I'm going to put finished. Let's get our recover lost flute quest. And I want to mark return magical flute to Nero and quest complete as done. I want to do both of those with this one. Okay. Now this quest activated switch, if we're on the current quest step, I want to make this react to global signal so that it will go away. Now, also, because we've got this other dialog interaction, we kind of need to duplicate this quest activated switch. I'm going to delete the children, and we need to nest this node underneath it, right? Okay, so we've got the dialog where he says, you know, I've lost it, and what we'll do is we'll just inverse the logic. So this one, if we're on the step to return the magical flute to Nero, we'll do this dialog. If not, if we have the quest, but we don't yet have the flute, then we'll do this one. So we'll just say, we can say remove when activated. So this will remove when we're on this step, okay? And then likewise, this whole thing we need to wrap in one more activated switch. Now this activated switch will just say quest complete, and then we will say, we'll check these to remove it. So once the quest is complete, it'll all be done, okay? Now, let me just run this and make sure that the first set of interactions works. Oh, and we have an error. Where's our error? Quest activated switch. Okay, well, there's a bug. Because we're trying to remove this sprite, and it looks like we're removing this thing, we're queue-freeing it right away, then this isn't going to happen, I guess, is the error, right? Because it gets removed, like things are getting removed out of order. So I guess we could say, maybe we can say if sprite 2D. I don't know. I hope this will fix it. I hope this is a nice, easy fix. And let's run the game again. Okay, that's working good. Okay, so let's just try talking to him real quick and make sure that the first thing works, although I got another node not found, sprite 2D. Oh, you know what? We've got this here in the activated switch. It's also inside of our, it's inside of this guy too. This advanced trigger. Okay, there we go. So we got to put that same check there. Okay, let's, gosh dang it. Never mind. Never mind. There's a find child. We can either do find child or I think there's a has node. Let me think about this for a second. Has node? What does has node do? Okay, let's do this if has node sprite 2D. We're going to need to put this on both. Okay. Sorry, you guys. You're seeing the real life pain of development. Okay, I don't see any debug errors. Let's try talking to him. Okay. Yeah. We're running into errors all over the place because what we've done is because we're queue freeing this thing, we just keep running into stuff. So I think what I'm going to do is get rid of this remove, this free on remove, because clearly that's causing some issues with this particular type of node. Okay, so we don't need that. Let's hopefully that fixes that issue. Some things are fine to free remove or to remove or free on load, all right? What am I trying to say? Free on remove. It's fine to queue free some of those things, but other things that have scripts running, that's going to cause errors. So let's see if this works better. Still ran into it. Still ran into that issue. Let's stop. Do I have something that's not configured right? Oh, I never configured this node properly. That's my other issue. So let's take this linked quest. I thought we did this one. I must have done something. So once this quest is complete, we're removing it. Okay. I must have unclicked that or not set it. I'm not sure. Okay, there we go. We can accept the quest. We have the quest. We can talk to him. Let's see if we can still talk to him. Thank you, hero. I lost my flute in the cave. Okay, so he's still doing that dialogue choice. And then if we load our game where we've completed some of those, so now we actually have the flute and we're on the step to return the magical flute. So let's talk to him and see what happens. Wow, you found my flute. It's not much, but here's a reward. Quest complete. Recover lost magical flute. We got our quest rewards, right? We might want to remove the flute. I don't know. You could figure that out. I guess we need to build a way in to do that real quick. But everything else worked, and the quest was completed. Okay? So, and he no longer talks to us because we've completed his quest. Now, you could, of course, once that quest is complete, you could open up a whole new quest branch with him or dialogue branch. And now you can see how to do that. You know, if you can figure out these nesting things, because that can be kind of confusing. But last thing we need to do is just remove the quest thing. So let's look at this script. We have is activated changed. Let's see. We've got this quest advanced trigger, right? Really, this quest advanced trigger should have a signal. Advanced. Okay. And then what we can do is when we advance the quest, right under here, after the await, we'll say advanced dot emit. And what we'll do in here is we just need a way to use up that item or to get rid of the item, remove it from the player inventory. Let's I'm going to go ahead and just create or add a node. And this node, we're going to do something we haven't done before. And we're going to add a script, attach a script to it, but we're going to check this built-in script. So I already had that checked. What that means is that the script is going to be built into this node. It's going to be part of this scene. It's not going to be shareable or reusable. And as this note indicates, you can't edit it in an external editor. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and create this because this is just a one-off. And we're going to grab our quest. And then we're going to have a ready function. And then we're going to get the quest advanced trigger dot advanced, and then we're going to connect. And then we'll just say, we'll call this quest complete because that's what that trigger is doing. Okay, so now in here, all we need to do is just figure out how to remove an item from our inventory. So let's look at this real quick. Let's go to, I can't remember where our inventory is. Inventory data, dot, and then let's check it. So let's see, we have add item, connect slot, slot changed, item to save, item from save, use item. We kind of need a remove item, don't we? So let's create a new remove item function. I'm going to create it up by the add item right here. Func remove item. Now this obviously is going to want us to pass in an item data maybe. And we should do the count as well. We'll just do the opposite of this. Okay. And I'm going to copy this code for S in slots. If there's a thing there, if the item data matches that, then we'll just say that the quantity minus equals the count. We don't need a return true. Okay. Otherwise we didn't find it. And then what we'll do is we'll say if s.quantity is less than or equal to 0. Here, let's do this. Let's say if it equals 0, then we're going to remove this from the thing. Let's see, which we do that down here. So I want to kind of just reuse some code. Item to save, item from save, use item. Minus equals count. I think we just get rid of it if we do, right? We do have a check here. This is important. Let's go ahead and do this. I wonder if we could use that use item. Let's just try it. Let's try using the use item. I know that this is not an item that you can use, but let's just try using it. So let's go to let's go back to this weird little script. Let's say use item. Why am I not getting any complete? Use item, right? And we just need to pass in the item data, and we can leave count blank. So this use item, let's find the item we want to use, and we'll just drag it in there. And we're gonna have to load the resource. So if I find the item resource up here, magical flute. Oh, my inventory data is not accessible. How do I normally call that? Is that part of I think that's just part of my inventory UI global. How do I have that loading? Let's check my player. It's probably in my player manager, actually. It's been a while since I worked on parts of this, so let's say player manager dot. Let's look at the player manager. Here we go. Inventory data. That should be it. Okay. So if I run the game, and if I come in here and load it, so I'm on the final step. Let's see if this works. I mean, we've got the flute. Let's just talk to him and see what happens. Yay, quest completed. We did that. Oh, and the flute is gone. Hey, look at that. That worked. Okay, perfect. So we've come full circle. Well, that was a heck of a video. It was kind of here and there and everywhere in between because I didn't have a fixed plan. I wanted you guys to see what I go through when I'm working on stuff to some degree. I cut out a few small bits because I decided that I was going down a weird path, and you don't need to see me make too many mistakes. But there we have it. That kind of concludes the quest mini-series of my action RPG tutorial series. If there's anything that you guys want to see as part of this quest, let me know. I'd be happy to consider adding on to it and advancing it and giving it some more functionality if it would be beneficial. But I hope that helped illuminate how you might be able to work and tie some of these things together. If you have thoughts and ideas on how to improve the system, I'd love to hear them. And thank you for watching. And as always, we'll see you next time.